We have 3 Starflight helicopters. We used one of the 3. Our teams are tired, but they couldn't be more dedicated to our community. And I couldn't be more proud or grateful of the efforts of our county staff and our city staff. I spoke with some experts at the county about the types of recovery efforts that we need to undertake, particularly woody debris removal and the potential impacts of those efforts as it relates to future resiliency in terms of fires, things like that, and the increased fire risk. I had a bird's eye view of the impact of the storm and the response. Energy crews from Austin Energy we saw dotted across the area. We saw clearly the broad extent of damage across the county. A lot of it focused kind of western, a little bit northwestern from what we could see from the air. Our road crews are separately going to look at what they can see from the ground. And it's kind of what we've talked about. Tree branches down, trees down, some on houses, some on sidewalks, some on fences. A lot of the streets have actually been cleared at this point, which I think is great news. I don't think a single street that was blockaded by trees at this point. Also saw that there was more visible damage in our more densely populated urban areas, particularly in the northwest along McNeil Road, Parmer, and Westlake. As I mentioned this morning, we take seriously declaring a disaster and would consider the extent of the damage and the potential benefit to our recovery efforts. Based on what we saw today and our discussions with our emergency response staff, I intend to issue a disaster declaration today for Travis County. A disaster declaration will make available access to FEMA's public assistance funds. It will also bring additional state support to our efforts. And again, it is just the first step in trying to access those funds, and there are additional steps. Our staff and mutual aid partners have risen to meet the occasion, and we know we also need more help. Under the FEMA Public Assistance Program, the threshold for accessing funds for Travis County is $5.7 million. If that threshold is met, FEMA will reimburse 75% of overall expenses, which includes the cost of debris removal and protective measures and any damage to county-owned facilities, or obviously in the city's case, the same for the city. This declaration will allow Travis County to use federal resources for local recovery. It will also allow our crews to aid people on private property, is our understanding. And that $5.7 million is a high threshold, but my understanding also is that we can combine with what the city of Austin may do with neighboring counties as well for this region to reach that dollar amount. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mayor Watson. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Sure.
This is in a bad spot.
Okay.
I apologize.
No problem. Thank you, Judge, and I think he laid that out pretty clearly. We all know the level of disruption, the work that needs to be done in order to overcome that disruption. We've talked about it several times now, and we've all been out, we've all seen it. So it's time for us to do this. As I pointed out this morning, one of the reasons that we're doing it now is because, frankly, you need to get through some of this so that you can actually assess the level of damage. And now we have, with a little bit better weather, with quite a bit better weather, we have the ability to assess that. So I also will today be signing and proclaiming that a disaster so that we'll have access to the funds that the judge just laid out.
Thank you. City Spencer, do you want to say anything?
Okay. Just appreciate the assistance that we often get from our partners, both at the federal level, the state level, and so we are in constant communication with both our companies at the state level as well. And so this helps us ensure that that continues, and that type of mutual aid is very critical during these times of emergency. So with that, we'll take any questions.
Yeah, and just want to say that we've got Eric Carter here, who's the county's emergency response rep or manager, and Juan Ortiz, who's the city's equivalent for emergency response. They together run the show here at CTEC.
We'll open up right here, CBS.
Judge Brown, I know yesterday you said you were considering doing this in conjunction with the city of Austin. Are y'all following the declaration separately, or is this together?
Yeah, so.
Oh,
sorry. So we will technically sign them separately because we're each the emergency manager for our respective jurisdictions, but we're going to do it at the same time. The language is going to mirror each other just as it did throughout the COVID period and things like that. So it's very much a partnership, doing it at the same time. And then my plan is to reach out. I heard that Hayes County declared it. I believe Williamson County did previously. I think Westlake and others may have. So we'll reach out to all of them, see how we can combine efforts best to seek this funding.
Okay, sure.
Will any of the aid be used to help low-income residents that maybe had to throw out food or couldn't get to work because of this freeze?
Yeah, part of what we're doing tomorrow is working with the food bank. They're actually going to have a food distribution. We're still working out the exact details, but I believe 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. I'll be there. The mayor will be there. We're encouraging them to do this. My understanding is that, yes, that additional funding can help with things like you mentioned, as well as other expenses.
Yeah, for example, one other expense, as I understand it can be used for, would be, as you've heard, if somebody has some personal expenses, meaning to their house, of needing to reconnect and needing to hire an electrician, some of this money can go for those kinds of things as well.
Right here.
Mayor Watson, earlier you spoke today about needing better communication during disasters. Can you be a little bit more specific on, what needs to be done with the communication?
Well, I'll say a couple things. One is I don't want to prejudge the good work that I believe will be done so that we come up with a much better system. But certainly the inability for people to know from the website when there might be an opportunity for their area to be addressed, text messages, things of that nature. We've had a number of people ask the question, why did we not utilize things of that nature? We need to set up a better communication system, and we need to evaluate that from top to bottom, soup to nuts, and also reach out to experts on communication in crisis type situations and incorporate that into a plan for the future so that some of the difficulties that we faced here don't happen again.
JD.
I got 2 questions there. What other companies are helping out, and if so, how many of those crews from each company have been sent to Austin?
Other companies?
Austin Energy question.
Jurisdictions or?
I think he's talking about power companies like Austin Energy or.
Yeah.
So in the county, we've got Preparedness, Encore, and Blue Bonnet
Austin Energy,
in the county, and then Austin Energy.
And Centerpoint.
And Centerpoint was up here as well.
You know how many crews are coming out from them guys, or are they just all on hand?
I'll just say that we're also going to be doing an operational update at 5 p.m., and so we'll be able to answer that question specifically.
Fox.
Sorry.
Another question is that there's a lot of branches that are down. Are we going to get more resources to help clear out those branches that are down from private properties in the actual commercial residents?
Yeah, I think the idea of the disaster declaration is that we would be able to do that. I believe it expands some ability to do things in private property areas, but I think the work, at least from the county side, and I'll let the mayor speak to his side, I know from the Transportation and Natural Resources Department, they estimate there are months of work to do to clear debris, and so that's where it could come in handy to be able to contract out with a third party to help us do that.
And I agree with that, but one of the other things I would add is a reminder that when crews show up and are on property and need to get to property in order to restore service or to do this kind of work, that please first thank them for being there, but secondly let them in so that they can get that work done. But yeah, he's right, but I would add that. And there's one other thing I would add about that, and that is that this is going to take a while. So while streets will get cleared, traffic lights will come back on, it will be a while before all of the brush can be picked up and taken up. And so we need to do this so that we can take that time and get it done.
And I'm going to want our T's to speak to some of the partnerships that we've had with the state, and even today we were working with our partners at Texas A&M Forestry.
Just want to add that we have been meeting with state officials, how state teams can help us come in from Texas Division of Emergency Management and also Texas A&M Forestry Service to help us with our chainsaw teams to help remove some of the down tree limbs. In addition to that, we have working with our local NGOs, non-government organizations. We've established a QR code where people can sign up. If those that have financial constraints or maybe disabled can get assistance in getting other volunteer organizations to come in and help them cut some of those trees in the backyards and push it off to the curbside. In addition to that, we're going to be making requests for other state assistance, asking for teams like Team Rubicon and also Texas Baptist Men that have chainsaw crews to come into our area and help with the private residential debris removal, cutting those trees down and pushing up to the curbside as well.
Right over. So people are in need of immediate assistance. How soon are we expecting for them to get these resources that are from the emergency declaration? Is it right away or?
So I think we're going to get resources right now. Of the city and the county staff are already out there working. And like I said today, observing it from above, it did not seem to me that there were any roads that still had trees. It looks like the city, frankly, and the county have both done a good job of clearing out roadways. There's obviously still power out in places. There are trees down in places. I think the most immediate need in my mind is possibly food. And so that's why we're working with the Central Texas Food Bank to do distributions of food tomorrow to people who might have that need immediately. And then this funding will take a little bit because that is how it works. But the idea is, as we're expending money on things, it may be things that are eligible to get reimbursed by the federal government as part of this effort.
Statesman.
That's going to be my question. Do you know, once that becomes available, how that will be communicated to families and how they can apply for those kinds of funds and resources for brush pickup?
I don't know how that works. I don't know. Spencer, one. Okay.
So once, if there is a presidential disaster declaration and certain programs are made available, so we're going to be communicating that through the local media, to our websites, to the local newspapers, radio, advertisements, every possible way. We will also be looking to establish a multi-agency resource center so that information can be made available. And teams are working in this building here to identify a plan on how that multi-agency resource center capability can be mobile and go to the different parts of the city and the county and offer an opportunity to people to come in and make connections with the local agencies that have programs here today, and then also programs that may become available in the future.
What can the city and county do to be more prepared for storms like this in the future?
You know, we've learned a lot from Winter Storm Uri, and we launched a campaign. That's the Get Ready Central Texas campaign. There's an app that people can download so you can find out exactly what you need to do. There are 4 pillars of preparedness. It talks about a family disaster plan, emergency resource kit, how to stay connected, and how to get out and get to know your neighbor, because we're a community and we got to help each other. Right? We all, in these situations, we all come together and we help each other. And those 4 pillars of preparedness are the principal starting point of how we need to be, what we can do to be better prepared. Eric, I don't know if anything else you want to add?
No, Juan, you covered it. I would just add, in terms of resources and the immediate availability of resources, continue to monitor the website, just like Mayor Watson and the others talked about. We're continuing to reinforce those information. If you look on the city website, the county website, we've already put out information related to how folks can match up with, as Juan has told you, a need for individuals who may need help cutting debris, to do the immediate emergency need of clearing driveways, getting access to your home with volunteer agencies. Our city crews, our county crews are hitting the streets. They're clearing those roads. So that's the good news, right? We're taking care of that immediate access stuff, and that's happening as we speak. We're going to get through this. There's a lot of activity going on. The utilities are still hard at work. So we just ask that everybody keep working hard, work together, as Juan said, as families, as neighbors, and we'll get through this.
But I want to answer about prevention and not just reaction after something like this happens. As I've said before, there's going to be an after action. What happened, when it happened, what else could have been done, why certain things weren't done, and in my view, that will be something that needs to be done. It needs to be done fairly rapidly because we could have other weather events. and we don't want to take a long time to put together an after-action plan. But in order to address certain needs, we need to have that plan in place so that in the future it'll be available to us. But the second thing is, it will be things like what you've heard over and over again, which is, what do we do with vegetation? We will look at things, we will look at the policies related to vegetation around our wiring and the electricity that people rely on. So you can count on a situation where the city council and the manager's office are working very diligently to come up with a plan so that the next time something like this happens, God forbid, we're in a better position to provide communication and perhaps prevent it in some instances.
Last question, TBF.
Two questions here, Mayor Watson. A follow-up from that after-action report. Are you considering getting input from the community to see if they feel the solutions you and council come up with are viable solutions?
Well, actually, yeah, two questions, but I'll jump in on the first one. I actually had a conversation just today with Councilmember Leslie Poole, who many of you know, she chairs the Austin Energy Oversight Committee of the City Council, which, again, so that you'll know, that is a committee of the whole. So everybody on the City Council is on that committee, and she chairs it. And we were exploring different ways that we could include the community so that we get the kind of feedback that might be helpful. And it's not just the city looking at the city. And so, yes, we're exploring, and frankly, people that have input, that think that they have an idea about who, or more importantly, say groups of people that have certain types of expertise that could be helpful in that, we would welcome that, and we're trying to figure out what the best way to go about doing it. Second question.
Did the city or the county reach out to the state to ask for resources ahead of time before the storm rolled in to kind of get, ahead of the game and anticipate the needs of the community?
I'm going to let him answer that question, but.
So we are always in coordination with the state and the National Weather Service. We participated in all the state calls leading up to this event. We participated with the National Weather Service calls leading up to this event. A lot of coordination takes place, looking at what the potential impact is going to be. The challenge for this event was trying to determine exactly the amount of precipitation that we were going to get, the amount of it that was going to freeze on the lines, and so and then also looking at what all our other neighbors are going to be needing as well. And we are a community that has a lot of resources. We want to utilize all the resources that we have so that we have opportunity for the state to be able to support other regions in the state that may not have quite the same level of resources. But at the point that we need resources, like where we are today, we've made a request to the state of Texas, and the state of Texas has also been here with us, and we have teams coming in to help us in the areas where we need assistance at this point.
All right, thank you all. If you all have any follow-up questions, there are city and county communication staff that can help you all answer those questions.
And there's a 5 o'clock press conference that you'll have the manager and Austin Energy and for technical questions that you might have about where we are.